Have you ever wondered what makes life alive? From the smallest bacteria to the most complex human body, everything is built from tiny powerful units, which is called cells. But where did this knowledge came from? Well, it was once a secret, but now we're going to unveil it one by one. This is Alia Cristal Fernando, and welcome to the Secret Life of Cells, where we dive into the microscopic world that makes life possible. Now, before all those stuff of literally knowing what cells is and where cells came from, let me refresh your minds a little bit on the brief history of the discovery of the cells. It all started in 1590 with the creation of the first compound microscope. It was created by Zacharias Janssen with the help of his father, Hans Janssen. They sell eyewear such as glasses for a living. So when they released their new product, it garnered the curiosity of many people. It became an instant hit, but sadly, it is known to be pricey. Cook in 1665 created his very own microscope. He then examined a thin slice of cork under the microscope that he built. He was able to see and observe small compartments. He initially called it cellula for it reminded him of little rooms back in monastery, which then he later called cells. On the other hand, Antony van Leeuwenhoek created a microscope with much higher magnification than what Hooke used. He got a specimen from his mouth, and with the help of his microscope, he was able to observe little animals moving and called it animalcules, which later called bacteria. Till his death in 1723, he documented living atoms, which he called the invisible world. Marcelo Malfigi said that living atoms are not necessarily single-celled, they organize themselves into tissues. Meanwhile, on the left, Bichat, a French anatomist, distinguished the 21 forms of elementary tissues out of human organs. This moved the cell biology toward a new step, which is the histology. It is the study of tissues and of systems of cooperating cells. The sculpture in this station is the replica of the monument of François Vincent Raspail, which is the proponent of the cellular physiology. He is a free thinker and a self-taught scientist. He is also an activist, which opposes moral, cultural, and academic and political authority. The government did not like that. He was sent to jail. There, he did not stop. He taught his co-inmates proper hygiene, antisepsis, and sanitation. Then, he studied the origin of the cells. What cell is made of? He stated that cells have various means of choice, resulting in different proportions of water, carbon, and bases which enter into the composition of their cell walls. It is easy to imagine that certain walls permit the passage of certain molecules. Surprisingly, this means that he already have an idea of what cell membrane is, and that cell is alive. He also stated that cell is a kind of laboratory which houses and performs physiological processes. However, unorthodox souls receive unorthodox rewards. He did not receive recognition for his works, but he has a monument, and the largest boulevard in Paris is named after him. And now, we are in the 1830s, where the creation of the cell theory takes place. This happened when Raspail is still teaching hygiene in the prison, while sadly, Virchow, like us, is still a struggling medical student. Here, we show you the two of the three main leads for the creation of the cell theory, Matthias Leiden and Theodor Swan. Matthias Leiden, a former law student, seeks enjoyment in plants. He observed plant tissues under his microscope and saw that tissues were actually made of agglomeration of tiny polygonal units, which are cells. Then a year later, he called his bestie Theodor Swan, a physician and a zoologist who also observed that animal tissues had a systematic organization which are also built by cells. They began to merge their ideas, creating the two tenets of the cell theory. First, all living things are composed of one or more cells. Then, the cell is the basic structure and functional unit of the organisms. However, they still don't know where cells came from, and they still believe in the vitalist movement that cells came spontaneously, as it collided with the peak of the theory of vitalism. Now, let's ask our local Maricel on what theory of vitalism is.
A lot of things happen. There are two clash from different groups fighting different things. The first debate came from vitalists. Ang dami nilang pinaglalaban. One of those is they said that living things can't be made by chemicals, same with nature. And this is the theory of vitalism. And this existed since time pa ni paring Aristotle. Now, they fuse it with the 18th century vitalism para unique, para sunod sa trend. Surprisingly, it was supported by influential scientists such as Bichat and Justus von Liebig. They said that there must be some divine mark that distinguishes the fluids and the bodies of the living beings. Special kaya tayo. Humans are not from lifeless inorganic chemicals, but it is made by cells which flows of vital fluid. And that vital fluid was created specially by our divine creator along with the same cells all over our body. And that vital fluid is sufficient enough to sustain life. Similar sa spontaneous generation. Kaya nga naging religious ako bigla. But most of them believe that cells came from spontaneously crystallized vital fluids. And the war started when few scientists tried to oppose the idea. Kinakalaban ba naman nila yung church? They believe that living chemicals and natural chemicals are actually the same. And living beings came from living beings, not spontaneously but through birth and development. One of the person that questions it is Robert Remak. He actually found the evidence for Raspel's theory that cells came from pre-existing cells, as he actually observed the birth of the cell under his microscope. The cell quiver, enlarge, bulge, and split into two, giving rise to two equal daughter cells. However, failed, since he's a Jew, and they continue to believe that cells came from vital fluid.
Now let's welcome the struggling medical student, Rudolf Virchow. There, he questioned vitalism. Thanks to his patients, specifically the tumor and cancer patients, he concluded that cells arising from cells are not only from some cells or some tissues, but for all of the cells, hence stating omnicellula e cellula, or cells from cells. No need to invoke any special chemicals, divine interventions for the origin of the cell. Therefore, finalizing the three tenets of the cell theory. First, all living things are composed of one or more cells. Second, the cell is the basic unit of structure and organization of the organisms. And lastly, third tenet, all cells came from other cells or omnicellula e cellula. So, this is how the cell theory that we study in the biological lectures came to be. And this ends our journey, but don't be sad because always remember there are more secrets to unveil in the next episodes of The Secret Life of Cells. Thank you and good night. Okay na to.